It's one of those stories that, the first time you hear it, your mind almost refuses to accept it. Not because it's complicated, but because it feels wrong in a way that's hard to process. When we think about true crime, we often picture dark alleys, masked strangers, organized killers. We don't usually picture a middle school dance, a hair salon, a maternity photo shoot, a woman who looks like any other mom you'd see at a parent-teacher conference. But that's exactly where this story lives. Her name is Robyn Polston. She's 43 years old, a hairstylist from Washington, Illinois, a mom, the kind of mom who posts smiling photos with her kids, shares quotes about family on Facebook, and tells her clients in the salon, "Enjoy your babies while they're little. They grow up so fast." And yet in early 2025, when Robyn gave birth to a healthy baby boy, the question echoing around her small community wasn't, "Is the baby okay?" The question was, "Is the baby's father really a 14-year-old boy who used to date her daughter?" That's the allegation. That's what prosecutors say the evidence points to. And that's what we're going to walk through together. Not to gawk, not to sensationalize, but to understand how something like this can happen in plain sight in ordinary neighborhoods, around people who, from the outside, look completely normal. You're listening to Crime Moment Podcast. And like we always say, every crime begins with a moment. I want you to picture a middle school gym on a spring night. The air smells like sweat, cheap punch, and hair gel. Colored lights spin lazily across a polished floor. Parents and teachers stand along the walls, arms crossed, pretending not to watch too closely, while a sea of awkward teenagers tries to figure out where to put their hands during a slow song. Somewhere in that gym in Peoria County, Illinois, stands Robyn Polston. She's there as a chaperone for her daughter's 8th grade dance. On paper, that sounds wholesome, right? A mom giving up her evening to make sure the punch bowl stays PG, nobody sneaks out the side doors, and the DJ doesn't play anything too wild. No one in that room knows that if prosecutors are right, this is where the story starts to bend. Because that night, according to the police affidavit, Robyn isn't just casually watching the dance floor. She's watching one boy in particular, Courtney. He's 14, a middle schooler, her daughter's date. We're not going to name him. He's a minor and he is a victim in this case. What matters isn't his name. What matters is that he was a child, standing in a gym, dressed up for a school dance, trusting the adults in the room to keep him safe. To everybody else, this is just another rite of passage, a milestone, a night that will blur into 100 other teenage memories. 2.5 years later, if the timeline is correct, that same boy will be living in Robyn's house, and she will have given birth to his baby. That's the distance we're traveling in this episode. From a school dance to a maternity ward, from an adult who should have been a guardian to an adult who now stands accused of sexual assault. By day, Robyn is a hairstylist. And if you've ever sat in a salon chair, you know, hairstylists hear everything. They learn how to listen without judging, how to nod in the mirror while you vent about your marriage, your boss, your kids. They're part therapist, part artist, part bartender without the alcohol. Robyn, according to former clients, fits that mold perfectly. Bubbly, talkative, quick with a joke, proud of her children, the kind of woman who would remember your birthday, ask about your mom's surgery, and give your kid a free trim because he's growing so fast. That's important because it shows you why no one initially saw her as a threat. When we picture predators, our brains default to a certain look: shady, menacing, obviously dangerous. We rarely imagine PTA volunteers, church moms, or women who pack lunches and sign permission slips. But sometimes predators look exactly like that. After the 8th grade dance, investigators say Robyn stayed in contact with the boy. At first, it may have looked harmless. He was her daughter's boyfriend. "Hi, how are you? How's school?" It's the kind of casual familiarity you see all the time when teenagers float in and out of each other's houses. Meanwhile, his own life was unraveling in ways a lot of kids sadly recognize. His mother died. He moved out of state with his father and stepmother. There were arguments, behavioral problems, talk of running away. On paper, he looks like a kid in crisis, grieving, unstable. bouncing between adults who are themselves trying and failing to keep up. And kids like that, kids who feel unseen at home, they are incredibly vulnerable to the wrong kind of attention, because all it takes is one adult who says, "I get you, I'm here, I won't judge," and slowly, the power dynamic shifts. When he moved with his father and stepmother to Nevada, that should have been the end of whatever connection existed. He's hundreds of miles away. New school, new routines, new rules. Whatever crush he had on his friend's mom, if it even existed, should have faded into the background noise of adolescence. But according to the police affidavit and media reporting, the contact did not stop. Messages continued. The emotional tether held. We don't know the exact wording of those conversations, and frankly, we don't need to. The specifics may come out in court one day, but the broad strokes are chilling enough. Because here's the core truth. There is no version of this story where a 14-year-old boy can consent to a romantic or sexual relationship with a 43-year-old woman. Legally, morally, emotionally, it is not possible. At some point, the boy tells his guardians he wants to go back to Illinois to visit a friend. It sounds innocent. Teenagers miss their friends all the time. A visit back home during Christmas break doesn't raise too many alarms. He comes back to Illinois in December 2023. Then he comes back again in April 2024. And that date, April, becomes crucial later. Because in January 2025, 9 months after that visit, Robyn gives birth to a baby boy. The math isn't subtle. It doesn't whisper, it screams. But at the time, the adults around him don't see the equation. All they see is a boy who is desperate to get back to Illinois, back to something that makes him feel anchored. What they don't know, according to investigators, is that the friend he's traveling across states to see isn't a kid his own age. It's Robyn. After Nevada, things don't improve. His behavior spirals. He's sent to live with his grandparents in St. Louis, closer to Illinois, but still under some kind of supervision. And then once again, Robyn steps in. She offers a solution that, on the surface, sounds like kindness. He can stay with us. He's friends with my son. I'll look after him. We don't know exactly what his father and grandparents were told. We do know that at some point they agreed. Maybe they thought it was temporary. Maybe they were exhausted and relieved someone was willing to help. Maybe, like so many people in these situations, they just wanted to believe the best. And so he moves in. Under that roof are Robyn's own children, including the teenage daughter who once dated this boy, and this 14-year-old who is now sharing a home with their 43-year-old mother. Think about the tension in that house, the confused feelings, the shifts in how people look at each other, the sense that something is off even if nobody can or will say it out loud. According to police, what happens inside that house is not mentorship, not simple kindness, not a troubled teen being taken in by a caring adult. What happens, they say, is a sexual relationship between a woman in her 40s and a child. At some point, Robyn discovers she's pregnant. If we press pause here and pretend we don't know the rest, there's a version of this story where that could have been joyful, a surprise baby later in life, an unexpected chance to start over, a miracle. But in this world, in this case, in this house, that pregnancy doesn't bring joy. It brings questions that don't have safe answers. People start to ask, who's the father? Robyn has an answer ready. She tells her clients, her friends, people around her, that she's dating a man in the military. His name is Brian. He's in his 20s. He travels a lot. That's why no one ever meets him. That's why he's never at appointments. That's why he's not in the delivery room. In isolation, that kind of story isn't suspicious. We all know someone whose partner works away, whose schedule is strange, whose relationship details are a little fuzzy. But the story doesn't stay straight. Different people get different explanations. Some hear one version, some hear another. The lies begin to tangle, and then there are the maternity photos. Robyn books a professional shoot to show off her baby bump. That alone is not strange. People do it all the time. What is strange, What turns stomachs the moment you understand what you're looking at is Romano is in those pictures. Standing next to Robyn, his hands on her pregnant belly, is the teenage boy, the one who used to date her daughter, the one now living in her house, the one who is still not old enough to legally drive. In those photos, they don't look like a mom and her daughter's ex. They look like a couple. The photographer later says that when she asked about the boy, Robyn told her he was 25. He just had a baby face. He didn't just have a baby face. He was a baby, in legal terms, a child. But those photos are taken. They are edited, they are shared, and in doing so, Robyn doesn't just display incredibly poor judgment. She documents what prosecutors now call evidence. Inside Robyn's extended family, the discomfort and suspicion are growing. Robyn is legally still married. Her husband's sister, her sister-in-law, has been watching all of this from the periphery. The changing stories about Brian, the very young-looking boy always around the house, the odd atmosphere that hangs over the family. At some point, she does something that seems small, but is actually huge. She pulls out a middle school yearbook. She finds this boy's photo. She looks at that picture, then at the photos floating around now, then at Robyn's belly, then at the last name and middle name Robyn has given the baby. And suddenly, everything snaps into focus. This isn't some mysterious military boyfriend. This isn't an older man with a youthful face. This is a teenager from her niece's class, a boy who walked into their lives as a date to an 8th grade dance. A boy now, allegedly, sharing a bed with their mother. The sister-in-law calls the police. We talk a lot in true crime about heroes and villains, but we don't often pause to talk about people like her. The family member who chooses to break the silence, knowing it will blow up relationships, holidays, everything. But without that call, who knows how much longer this story would have continued unchecked. When police begin their investigation, they start, as they often do, with paperwork. They ask for the baby's birth certificate. The line for father is blank. That alone doesn't prove anything. There are many reasons a father's name might be left off. But investigators notice something else. The baby's middle name and last name match the teenage boy's. That's not a coincidence, that's a choice. From there, things move quickly and methodically. Officers seek a DNA test. When the results come back, they confirm what everyone was already afraid was true. The 14-year-old boy is the biological father of Robyn's baby. That one result takes the story out of rumor territory and lands it squarely in the realm of evidence. It's no longer, did something happen? It's, something happened. How often? For how long? And who knew? And they're not finished. They seize Robyn's phone. If you've followed enough modern cases, you know. The phone almost always has something to say. Photos, videos, messages, location data, screenshots. Our devices are journals we don't realize we're writing every day. According to the affidavit, investigators find a large number of sexually explicit images and videos on Robyn's phone, involving the boy, involving Robyn, involving the two of them together. Many of them, police say, appear to have been taken by Robyn herself. Every file has a date. Every date is a potential count. Every image is another example prosecutors can point to and say, this wasn't an accident. This was ongoing. So now the picture, the real picture, not the edited maternity shots, is brutal in its clarity. A boy, far from stable, mourning, bounced across households. A woman, 12, nearly 13 years older than his own mother would have been, positioned as a caretaker, allegedly turning that position into something predatory. In early November 2025, law enforcement moves. They arrest Robyn Polston. She's charged initially with 2 counts of criminal sexual assault and 2 counts of child sexual abuse. Investigators indicate they expect more charges to come as they continue to review evidence. The judge denies bail. She is held without bond. From a true crime perspective, it's easy now to freeze her in that moment. Orange jumpsuit, wrist cuffed, face in a mugshot shared 1,000 times over. But the legal process is only one part of this. Somewhere out there is a 14-year-old boy, maybe 15 by now, trying to live under the weight of all of this. Somewhere, there are children who once called Robyn mom, trying to reconcile the person they love with the allegations they're reading. And somewhere, there's a baby whose name is already in court documents, who will one day be old enough to Google it all. We need to press pause here and say something important. As of this moment, Robyn has been charged, not convicted. In the eyes of the law, she is presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. Her defense attorneys will have their chance to speak. We may hear arguments about mental health, loneliness, trauma, or blurred boundaries. We may hear them say she was broken in ways that go back years, maybe even decades. All of that can be true, but even if it is, it doesn't change one core reality. A child cannot consent to sex with an adult. Not at 14, not at 15, not at 16. You can't mature your way out of being a minor. He might have said he loved her. He might have begged to visit. He might have defended her to his family. And none of that matters in the eyes of the law, because the law understands something we sometimes forget. When there is this much power imbalance, age, life experience, authority, control over housing and food and emotional support, the word yes doesn't mean what it does between two adults. Consent stops being consent when it's wrapped in dependency. If this case goes to trial, jurors will likely see and hear things that never make it fully to the public record. But the skeleton of what they'll consider is already clear. The age of the boy, the timeline of his visits to Illinois, the move into Robyn's home, the pregnancy and birth, the birth certificate with no father listed but a name that mirrors his, the DNA results, the images and videos on her phone, the maternity photos, the shifting stories about a military boyfriend. From there, they'll be asked to answer the question that sits at the center of so many cases like this. What does justice look like when the person accused of abusing a child is someone the community once saw as a caring adult? For me, what makes this case so disturbing isn't only what allegedly happened behind closed doors. It's how much of it wasn't behind closed doors at all. It was on Facebook, on Instagram, in framed pictures, in front of a photographer. At the hospital, where staff saw a 40-something woman and a much younger-looking boy together, and understandably assumed he must be a relative, a son, a younger brother. We like to think we'd always recognize danger, that we'd see it from a mile away, that we'd say something, do something, if we ever saw a line being crossed. But this case forces us to ask a harder question. How many times do we scroll past something that doesn't feel quite right and keep going? How often do we shrug off a bad feeling about a dynamic because she seems nice, or he's just troubled, or that's none of my business? I'm not saying we should turn into a world of paranoids who assume every older person near a teenager is grooming them, but we also can't afford to keep pretending these things only happen in the shadows. Sometimes they happen under bright lights, at dances, in church groups, on school trips, in homes that look like yours and mine. So where does that leave us with a story like this? On one hand, there is anger. In anger at the idea that a woman who had every opportunity to be a safe adult allegedly used that trust to exploit a boy who'd already been through more than most kids his age. On the other hand, there is grief. Grief for the boy, grief for her children, grief for a baby born into a story he didn't choose. And somewhere in that mix, for some people, there may even be a sliver of something like pity, not as an excuse, but as an acknowledgement that people who do monstrous things are sometimes themselves the product of pain, untreated illness, and broken systems. But pity, anger, grief, none of them erase harm. They don't change what a child lived through. They don't rewrite a birth certificate. They don't undo a single message, photo, or night. What they can do, if we let them, is push us to pay closer attention. To be the person in the family who says, something's off and I'm going to call. To be the teacher who sees a dynamic that doesn't feel right and logs it. To be the friend who doesn't laugh off the joke about an older woman and a teen boy, like it's some kind of fantasy instead of what it really is. Abuse. The case of Robyn Polston is still unfolding. more evidence will come out. More hearings will be held. We'll learn more about everyone involved, and some of what we learn will be uncomfortable in ways that linger. But the core of this story is already clear enough. A baby, a teenage boy, a mother who, if the charges are proven, stepped over a bright red line and kept walking, even as she posed for photos and smiled at the camera. This is not the kind of true crime story that lets you sleep easy afterward. It's the kind that sits with you. Maybe that's good, because if true crime is going to be more than entertainment, then cases like this have to do more than shock us. They have to teach us to see vulnerability, to see imbalance, to see when friendship between an adult and a child slips into something that should never be allowed to grow. You've been listening to Crime Moment Podcast. If this story made you angry, uneasy, or more aware, that's okay. It should. Hit subscribe so you don't miss updates as this case moves through the courts. Share this episode with someone who cares about protecting kids. And if you have thoughts, questions, or your own experiences with systems that failed to protect you or someone you love, I invite you to leave a comment or send a message. We'll be following every development in the case of Robyn Polston, from new charges to court hearings and eventually a verdict. Until then, remember, the truth isn't just serious, it's personal. And sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that unfold in places we thought were safe. I'm your host. This is Crime Moment Podcast. Join me next time when once again we step into that uneasy space where darkness meets the light of truth.